Well, hi again. This is True Seeker again. And I know I just completed one video, but I didn't want to make it was already too long. And I didn't want to mix these topics up. I have had some interesting dialogues and comments lately to some of my videos. And I learned some things from this dialogue, and I'm really grateful to Jacqueline, who's left a number of favorable comments on my YouTube, and hmm, and also I'm sorry that look was to something here that I need to respond to. um, and also to other supporters that regularly comment, like SOS, and in the past there was the unreluctant who used to comment. They mean quite a bit to me, and thank you very much. I know I've never met any of you, but through our dialogue, I definitely understand that you're people who care, who are interested in this topic, and it's and there are others. There are others too. I don't want to be remiss in thanking everybody who's uh, subscribed. I don't ever anticipate that this will ever be a livelihood. Um, like I mentioned in my previous YouTube video, that mathematics is really my passion, and that ultimately I want to help young people learn mathematics the way I learned it, through the tutelage of a wonderful person um, who unfortunately passed away in 1992, only 4 or 5 years after I had him as a professor. Um, I was one of those lucky, rare people that was able to have a class with him. I took 2 semesters, and he had an entirely different approach to teaching calculus and differential equations and pre-calculus. And I hate to think that after 30 years, this whole thing has been lost. And I want to make a series of YouTubes that are dedicated in his honor, using his, to the best of my ability, his approach of teaching math in an intuitive way. That's my passion. But I do this work, these videos, because I know how important it is. Um, my brother committed suicide because of the influence, the undue influence that just crushed him, um, and the false hopes and beliefs that the Bible students are deluded to believe, that they put everything off. They say, oh well. Even in my dialogue with my cousin, he threw this at me. Oh, George will be so happy and blessed in the kingdom when God fixes everything. What if there's no kingdom? What if God doesn't fix everything? I don't want young people ruining their lives. I don't want young people who feel guilted and shamed to hold hold to the indoctrination that's been impressed and pounded into their brains. and feel guilty if they don't live up to the culture that has been imposed upon them simply by being born into it. I want them to understand, and I think it's important for people to understand that they have the right to think for themselves. That independent thinking is not a thought crime. There was a talk by Gene Burns in the 1970s. Many Bible students would know that name because he was a prominent Bible student speaker back in the 60s, 1970s, and 80s. And he gave a very pronounced talk that could have been given by Toni Morris, who gave a talk on independent thinking and the sins. It was almost verbatim, making the same exact points about independent thinking. And that was from the Bible student Gene Burns. I had that cassette tape. It was the flip side talk of one of my father's talks. And so that's why I do these videos. And recently I was contacted by an individual. I would call him a young man. Anybody 20 or 30 years younger than me is a young man to me, and I would say somebody 30 years older than me would look back and say I'm a young man. So I guess it's all perspective. But he informed me that there's an ex-Bible student Reddit group that I just learned about. And I checked it out. I made a couple of comments. I don't know. I noticed even a couple of my videos were on Reddit, and I didn't anticipate that. But I've had this fascinating dialogue over the last 2 days with an individual, Jacqueline. Apparently, she doesn't feel the need for anonymity, and she's mentioned some things that were distressing to me, but also are things that I knew about the Bible students that make exactly the point of why I do these videos. I noticed my dear wife just woke up, so I'll try and keep this as short as I can. Yeah, she says hi to everybody. Yeah, she's the one that really made me think and realize how dangerous and bad this whole business is. But Jacqueline indicated to me in a running dialogue that we've had over the last 2 days that she had some bad experiences with Bible student brethren and elders in particular, who outright condemned her to second death. I believe that it probably is my destination too in the minds of quite a few. I never intended really for these videos to, it wasn't the point of these videos to create a stir within the movement, but I have the right to speak my mind. And I believe that what groups like the Bible students and Jehovah's Witnesses are dangerous to the psychological welfare of those that are within those groups, especially in the Bible students, because most are born-ins, like I was. I'm a fourth-generation Bible student whose family went back into the earliest days of the movement, even predating 1900. I had one side of my family that went back as far as the 1890s. So there's a long history in my family and the Bible students, and the disturbing thing is the violent reaction that occurred to this person for simply stating that she did not believe that Russell was the wise and faithful servant, or that he was the Laodicean messenger, and that was enough for her to be, I guess, sentenced or judged unworthy for life, and that second death was her destiny. I know that there are probably some groups, and it varies from ecclesia to ecclesia, the extreme measures that different classes have different degrees to which they're orthodox. But I've encountered many individuals who believed the Bible students were less. Let's put it this way: they're Jehovah's Witness lights. That they're more open-minded, that they're always pleasant, that they are more willing to accept individuals' differing opinions, and I think that's largely due to the fact that, first off, the Bible students don't have a live or living leader. Their leader is Charles Taze Russell. Although some groups may be less radical in their devotion to Russell than others, all of them hold Russell in too high a esteem. And many even revere Russell. And it isn't uncommon for elders to cite reprint articles as if they were scripture. And so it's following a man. The term Russellite is really appropriate. And I've known, well, I think most Jehovah's Witnesses, the majority of them, really don't know that the Bible students still exist. And that probably more frequent that for me to encounter a Jehovah's Witness who said, gee, I didn't know the Bible students still exist. In fact, I think they even confused the matter even more by calling individuals with whom they open up studies with, they call them Bible students, which I think probably may be deliberate to dispel the idea that there are, at least there's this association that a Bible student is somebody from the world who's studied, is currently studying with a Jehovah's Witness, as opposed to the sect or movement denoted Bible student as they were during Russell's time up until 1931, when Rutherford changed the name of the movement, frankly, to Jehovah's Witnesses for any of the followers that remained loyal to Watchtower, to differentiate. Actually, if you look up the 1932 yearbook, Rutherford actually states explicitly that he chose the name Jehovah's Witness to avoid confusion with other groups that continued with the name Bible students. And he identifies Russellites, Standfasters, and others who identified themselves as Bible students. And the fact of the matter is that when you look at the numbers, uh, the memorial numbers. And you can go to JW Facts and you can look up some of the historical statistics that Paul Grundy has posted, and he's done a great service to putting up all that historical documentation in one place so people can go back and look back at the history of the Watchtower and get the data that is helpful for them to understand the issues that there are with Jehovah's Witnesses. But he has one graph that showed the memorial attendance back into the, I believe, early 20s, from the late teens, early 20s of the early 20th century, that show the growth of the memorial peaking out around 1925 at close to 90,000. It was 89, almost 90,000. And then it flattened out for 2 years. And then in 1928, it plummeted. Memorial attendance plummeted from 90 or 89,000 to 17,000. And that is consistent with, there was a book put together. Oh, geez, again, this is so frustrating to me because my memory. He quoted some statistics about 75% of the movement dissociated themselves from Watchtower. Well, it wasn't so much dissociation as many did leave on their own volition, but many were disfellowshipped by Rutherford and shunned. Shunning goes back to Rutherford. It didn't start in 1952. It started as an official policy in 1952, but the practice of shunning went back earlier, much earlier, and started with Rutherford himself. He prohibited the Bethel family to talk to anybody who was disfellowshipped, and so that the practice of shunning does go. It is historically embedded within the movement itself, well embedded, and as far back as Russell actually, because he did disfellowship members for not accepting the New Covenant change from 1907, I believe that occurred. That was the first big doctrinal change, and those like Ernest Hennings, who was the Watchtower representative running the branch, the Australia branch in Melbourne, he and his wife, Rose Ball Hennings, some people may know of Rose Ball, being the foster daughter of Mariah and Charles Taze Russell. She's the one that has been so notorious within the discussion of Russell's divorce from Mariah. And it was a divorce. It wasn't so much a separation. It was a divorce. There was alimony that was allotted, and Rose was at the center of it, although Mariah hesitated, and I don't know why, because she made these allegations and then really didn't press them in the divorce. I don't know what Russell did or what Rutherford did or what advice she was given by counsel, but she seemed to have backed off on these allegations regarding infidelity on the part of Russell, claiming that he wasn't infidel, but there could well be more to the story. In fact, I found some evidence that there may have been some impropriety as far back as the 1880 when Russell, his father Joseph, his wife Mariah, and his wife's sister Emma all lived under the same roof. Now, Joseph was 64 at the time, and Emma There is an 1880 census that shows the four of them living together, lists Joseph as a widower, Emma, the younger sister of Maria. Even though it's spelled Maria, it was pronounced Mariah. She was about 24 at the time. Mariah was older than Charles. Charles was 28. Charles was listed as head of household. Mariah was listed as housewife, and Emma was listed as single. Their daughter, now Joseph and Emma did get married in 1881. They had a daughter, Mabel, whose birthday is obscure. So the marriage date is obscure between Joseph and Emma, and the birth date of Mabel, their daughter, can be pinned down no more precisely than September of 1881. And I went through quite a few records in Ancestry, and I just couldn't find anything more detailed. Found marriage records for Mabel. I found birth records for her son. I found there actually may still be direct relatives of Russell alive today through Emma and Joseph. But why there are these lack of specifics regarding these marriage dates and birth dates, one can only speculate. But scandal was something that was alluded to by Mariah, but never pressed. And she moved in after Russell treated her very poorly, very poorly. She was thrown out of a house. She had to fight for her alimony. She did move in with her sister Emma. Emma was accused by Russell as having poisoned Mariah with suffragette ideas. Emma, Mariah, and their mother lived together for a short time before they all ended up, I think before Emma and Mariah moved to St. Petersburg, Florida. And that's where they lived until both died. Emma died before Mariah. Mariah died in 1939. Actually, my grandparents, having lived in St. Petersburg, and my grandfather having started the Orlando class, they held conventions that Mariah actually attended only for the purpose of meeting old acquaintances and friends. But she was pretty well ostracized by the movement because of Russell's defaming her, his slander against his wife. So I don't think very highly of Russell. And anyway, there's ample evidence for anybody who wants to, who just blatant, scam with the photodrama of creation, when he equates the four parts of the photodrama of creation as being equivalent to 4 years or more of college education. And that simply was not true. And, he was pitching this there was an audience of 9 million people in 1914 who saw this photodrama of creation and heard this pitch, and probably many came away with the idea that they were getting a college education. And to me, that's no different than snake oilsmen. And so, I don't think very highly of a person who who can lie outright like that so publicly and wantonly.
Some say.
Yeah, well, yes, my wife is pointing out that he said some say, but he didn't have to say anything at all about college education. He was just being slippery there, but it was it's evident that he's not a person that the story of the potatoes. Read in the Laodicean Messenger. You can find a PDF version of the book, 1923 book, The Laodicean Messenger, printed by the Chicago Bible Student Press in 1923. I said that already. And look up the potatoes story. And, put yourself in the place of the poor person who was being put on the spot by Russell, who had just come back from a 3-month or 4-month tour in Europe and demanded an inventory of the stores, the Bethel stores, and they go down and they're looking at the potatoes, and he presses the person about how much he paid. And the person said, I paid such and such, and Russell shot back instantly, you paid too much. Now think about what that person felt like. Here, the Laodicean messenger, the head of the Bethel, the head of Watchtower, is telling you you paid too much for those potatoes. Now, the writer of the book is extolling the omniscient wisdom and knowledge of Russell to the point that he even knew the price of potatoes after being gone so long from being in Europe. They were praising him. On the other hand, what did this poor schmuck who is being told by the Laodicean messenger he paid too much? It'd be like Jesus telling the apostles they paid too much rent for the upper room for the Passover. It's just ridiculous, I mean, that's the man. When you realize, oh, he's only human. No, he was mean. And it came out in many, many ways. I mean, the jellyfish statement, I don't know how much truth there is to that. I don't know. But if it's true, it's an awful thing to say. To dialogue with his wife only through writing. In the same house, they weren't speaking to each other. He wouldn't speak to her. His own wife. And he would write a note out and hand it to Rose Ball to give it to his wife, to the person that supported him, helped him. Some say wrote the first 4 volumes for him because he was essentially, functionally illiterate with a 7th grade education. No, education wasn't better in those days. And she helped him a lot. She even promoted this idea of his being the Laodicean messenger. And now he turns on her, and he won't communicate with her except by note. He tells her that she's so lucky that 1,000 women would readily be in her position. What? If I told my wife that, she'd say, "Oh, go ahead, find that 1,000." It is a different era, but I mean, that was mean. That's a meanness. He was not this. He knew how to put on a front, and that's what he did. He was exploiting his notoriety. He was building something that was his legacy. He was not a kind and warm and wonderful human being. And actually, reflected in the movement that is dedicated to his memory, to his teachings, to his doctrines. Like I said, there are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that have found their way into the Bible students and actually say, oh, they're so much more open-minded. And I reply when I do encounter individuals like that, try saying that you don't believe Russell was the Laodicean messenger, or that he was that wise and faithful servant, and see the reaction that you will get. And Jacqueline actually did make that statement, and she paid an emotional price for it, because she got the reaction that I suspected that a person would get if they made that statement. So, Jacqueline, thank you for helping me convey some of what I've been struggling with, because the Bible students seem so inconsequential, mainly because of their size, mainly because of the misconceptions that people have about the Bible students, that they are somehow better than the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I've struggled with the getting the concept over that they're really not different, that their cultures are the culture of the Jehovah's Witnesses really is just an extension of the culture of the Bible students. And that both of them are not, even though that many of the doctrines that they believe differed, have parted ways, I would say 80% of what both sects believe is basically pretty much the same. There are doctrines that the Bible students would say are essential doctrines that the Jehovah's Witnesses have abandoned.
But at least they get the option of living on the earth if they don't make the great calling instead of death.
But yes, I think the Bible students are not the J.W. Light as some people might think, or returning back to the true religion, the original religion of love. I didn't see tremendous amount of love in the Bible students. It's like the Jehovah's Witness. It's conditional love. It's conditional love based on your acceptance of the culture and the doctrines, especially Charles Taze Russell's teachings. So anyway, I want to thank my supporters. It means a lot to me when I hear from you, and it helps motivate me to make these. I don't know how helpful I really can be, but I try to do what I can, both for Jehovah's Witnesses and for ex-Bible students. And it's very disheartening for me to hear the latest plans of Watchtower. It's already bad enough that they put their headquarters practically in my backyard. Now I hear that they're going to put this huge 240-acre facility, this media center, only a couple of miles from their headquarters. So they're overrunning the region, and that really is disheartening to me, especially that this is virgin land that really has a tremendously high ecological value to this region. So it's a shame to me to see that land being spoiled. critical endangered species being displaced and threatened as a result of the taking out of the woods for this development. So anyway, I don't want to make this too long, but again, thank you so much for your comments and supporting me, and I wish everybody the best.